Hey everybody, welcome back to Front Page Fitness. It is me, Eric Trexler, joined as always by the Dr. Lauren Colenso-Semple. Lauren, how are we doing tonight?
Huge apologies for canceling on the good listeners last week due to the 2 feet of snow I got in lovely Ontario, Canada. We are now back to a modest 1 foot of snow plus a lot of piles of snow and ice everywhere. But it was a little rough week last week, I gotta say.
Yeah, I had some people message me and they're like, hey, what is going on with the show? Why isn't it on? And I threw you under the bus, but I used some very alarming language, talking about various like catastrophic infrastructure developments and meltdowns and things like that. And then I think I made people actually worried about your safety. And then I said, actually, it just snowed in Canada, which I believe they're used to. But in any case, I'm glad that you're alive. Did you have to go? Do you have to like freeze in your house with no power for a while?
Well, we had some power issues. We definitely had some internet issues, but most importantly, I was scheduled to fly out on Tuesday, and we got just this ton of snow Sunday and Sunday night. And before my departure, I was supposed to pick up some clothes at the dry cleaner, and the dry cleaner closed on Monday randomly because of weather. And I know you won't understand this because you wear sweatpants under all circumstances, but some of us
Whoa,
like
whoa,
to
whoa,
look
whoa. I
nice.
wear, excuse me, geriatric pants that look like slacks.
Right. Well, so you could have just ordered another pair of said geriatric pants and overnighted them on Amazon, but I had some pants that I needed to get tailored, and I dropped off another pair of pants to be like, can you make them the same length as these pants? And I was planning on bringing both of those on my trip. I needed 3 nice outfits for this trip, and it was just mayhem.
Yeah. And to
So
be fair, I will acknowledge you're not being high maintenance here. You are actually going to be on like high profile platforms with an actual video component. So I want to go to bat for you, protect your reputation, and acknowledge that would be fairly stressful. Again, that's why you want to get every piece of clothing you like, you want to get it at least 6 to 8 pieces of it. So for me, if I were in a bind in my geriatric pants, let's say I blew out a seam, which I've been known to do from time to time, we just swap in the next pair and get another order, another shipment coming in from mainland China. So just my advice to you.
I wonder, when people go on these book tours and it's like you're on this podcast and then you're on a morning TV show and then you're on like, again, you have to have a different nice outfit, like full outfit for every one of these things. How do you do that? How do you travel with all of that and not like, I don't get it.
Yeah, here's what I'll say. Women have all the advantages in our society. There are very few, almost no instances where men kind of have things easier or better. But the
Right.
one instance that I would say leans in our favor is if you are a man, you can play the card. I don't know why this only works for men, but you can play the card where you say, actually, I wear the same exact thing every day because I'm a genius. And people just say, oh, great. That sounds so cool. I bet you are a genius. I don't know why we're allowed to do that, but we are. And it almost makes you cooler. So that would be my advice. If you can, Lauren, can you be the woman who says, that's it. Enough is enough. I am bringing women into that arrangement. And you will be the first one who says, I wear the same thing every day, all day, because I'm a genius, and you make it work.
I wouldn't be the first one because the first one who tried to do that was Elizabeth Holmes of Theranos with the black turtleneck. And it didn't work out very well for her. Probably not because of the turtleneck, more for some other reasons, but
No,
not
it
something
worked
to
out.
aspire to.
It worked out until prison, but here's the thing. And she did not go to jail for wearing the same thing every day, first
That's
of all.
true.
Second of all, I don't know if that counts because she was directly copying Steve Jobs down to the detail. So I think that one was a little bit unfair because it was just kind of a carbon copy of really, I would say Steve Jobs is like one of the first dudes who really did this and made a statement of it. So
Yes.
I'd like to see someone venture out there and not just do like a wearing the Steve Jobs uniform, but say like, here is my daily outfit that is mine, and I'm doing it every day. And that way you'll never run into this again, Lauren.
So then I would like to do the matching like sweatpant, sweatshirt, suit.
The
And I could
gray?
even
Like the heather
switch up the
gray?
color. No, like, I mean, I'm doing it right now. It's green. I
Oh.
have matching pants.
Okay.
So
I think there was an episode, I think, of How I Met Your Mother where they made like gray sweats into a suit or something. I might be mixing sitcoms. I'm not totally in depth on it, but I thought that's what you
I
were
think
referring
you're
to.
referring to the pajamas that were that were a suit. So it was suit
Maybe.
pajamas.
Okay.
Because Barney always wore a suit, and so it's like he sleeps in the pajama version of a suit.
Okay. Well, if we're incorrect, this is the type of thing we can always trust the chat is going to fact check on the fly. And by the way, welcome to everyone in the live chat. Lauren, is there anything else you want to say before we get into the tremendous... Oh, it looks like you've got some stuff on bar soap in your walkout song. Are you going to tie up some loose ends for us?
Yes. So the walkout song that I chose was Legendary and by Welshly Arms, and it was good. It was
Welshly
the
Arms
first
sounds
50
like
seconds of that.
Welshly Arms sounds like a gun manufacturer in the UK. I've never heard of this, and I've not heard of the song, so I'll listen to it after.
All right. And I would like to complain about bar soap as the hand soap they give you in hotels, because I get it. They're trying to provide you with a new thing of soap that you can unwrap, and perhaps with liquid soap you can't do that, and so maybe people think it's cleaner or something. But I have to say, bar soap is really annoying. And as soon as you use it once, then it starts to melt all over the countertop or dish provided for said soap, and I don't want it. So just a note to all hotels: stop it. Give me some liquid hand soap.
I'm gonna do the rare thing where I agree with you, and I'll recommend another switch. So right now, when I go to hotels, most of the time, maybe I need to stay at better or worse places. I don't know, but they do what you're saying. The hand soap, which just melts all over the counter and becomes a disaster at the sink. But then in the shower, now they have the instead of the little travel size soaps, now they have the dispensers of like shampoo,
And they're locked
conditioner.
in so you can't steal them.
Yeah, shampoo, conditioner, body wash. I think body wash is a complete scam. I think bar soap is the way to go in the shower. So what I want them to do is switch. Give me
Okay.
give me a completely mounted, unstealable hand soap liquid at the sink,
Yeah.
but then give me my bar soap in the shower. That's what I want.
Okay.
Because the body wash, it just doesn't sud up. It doesn't undergo legitimate saponification, as I learned in my biochemistry courses. And I need saponification if I'm going to remove lipid-soluble substances from my body.
I will also say I don't want a really fragrant body wash when I'm washing some of one's more private sensitive areas. I'd like just soap, like some basic soap without a lot of like florals and fruit.
We want saponification, no more, no less. So hashtag saponification. All right, Lauren. It was an eventful week in fitness.
Yes.
There were many cancellations, and not like the nitpicky cancellations of yesteryear. These were like big seismic. Like it's difficult, Lauren, for me to tell with the way algorithmic social media works. I was like, and is it only me seeing this everywhere, or is this literally everywhere for everyone? But initially there was a cancellation of someone named Scotty K Fitness, and that one caught me by surprise because apparently this guy has a massive fitness page and I'd never heard of him in my life. So it was one of those eye-opening things where I was like, whoa, this is a big old space now, because I've never heard of this guy and he's got like 2 million followers.
Okay.
But in any case, that seemed like the big story of the week. And if you want to look into it, it's all over the place. But then, Lauren, the big stuff happened. So the big headline of the week was the Epstein files, or some percentage of them dropped, like 3 million files. And what was really unexpected, I think, for a lot of people is that a very large health, wellness, fitness influencer was really caught up in it. So there was Peter Attia, who we have mentioned on the show to some extent, just based on normal fitness stuff or health stuff. But Peter Attia was named numerous times in the files having direct interactions with Epstein. Some of them, to Attia's own admission, were not very becoming of Attia. They were pretty gross emails. They reflected what seemed to be a pretty collegial friendship that lasted over many years. And the whole thing was kind of gross. But Lauren, on this show, the one thing we have allegiance to is the New York Post. So do you want to give us a little insight into the New York Post article on the matter?
Yes. So the title of the New York Post headline is CBS News contributor Peter Attia, quote, ashamed as crude, quote, indefensible emails with pal Jeffrey Epstein emerge, and his job is on the line. So just for a little bit of backstory, Peter Attia is known as a kind of longevity expert, a self-proclaimed longevity expert. He does have a medical degree. He went to medical school. He doesn't have any specific kind of research or clinical or educational experience in exercise or nutrition, but he speaks on both topics with a lot of authority. And he's been known over the years to promote extended fasting, continuous glucose monitors for the non-diabetic, grip strength training, VO2 max testing, and has done some, seed oil fear mongering. So there's been some issues there just about his messaging overall. But the important distinction here is, in my opinion, we can take issue with some information that somebody is spreading. And then we can also take issue with something that people are doing in their personal lives. And in some situations, one might make the argument that these should be separate, that like one's kind of personal life doesn't necessarily dictate whether they're a trustworthy source of health and fitness wellness information. But this is a very unique case in that Jeffrey Epstein was convicted and sentenced to 13 months of prison in 2008. And in that guilty plea, that involved a 14-year-old girl. This was very public. And the interactions that Peter Attia was having with Jeffrey Epstein were in 2016, 17, 18. So years post that criminal history that, again, was quite public. And so it's kind of hard to say, oh, well, he didn't know, or he, let's just kind of give him a pass, or let's try to separate the two, because you have somebody who is a known sex offender and somebody who's, up and coming and trying to kind of get in with the wealthy, because, if you don't know, Peter Attia charges about $100,000 a year for his kind of concierge medical services.
And that's per client. That's correct. Not an annual income. Yes.
Yeah. So this all kind of came out, and a couple of months ago it came out after he did that 60 Minutes episode, which we did touch on. It was mentioned that he was perhaps Epstein's doctor, and there were kind of rumors swirling, but there weren't literal records of their communication until a couple of days ago.
Yeah, and I don't know. I read Attia's statement about it, which, man, took a while to get out. It was really kind of jarring, like just kind of like looking at the clock, being like, he's got to say something. And then in a huge gaffe, his account must have had scheduled content that just went out as normal. And so it was like, hey, here's a little health article. And people are like, what? Like, it was not good. The optics were quite bad. But I think he claimed, and I'm just basically saying this, the legal department's in my ear. I think he claimed that he was not Epstein's doctor in
That's
that message. Is that right?
Yeah, he
But
said that he gave him like some, casual medical advice, but he was never his doctor.
yeah, but very strange. I say that basically just to avoid any kind of nonsense down the road about this. But yeah, it's as I was saying before I got cut off by mysterious forces, like this whole thing is a mess. Like it's gross to know that this stuff was happening. It's gross to know how many people seem to be super comfortable being extremely friendly with this guy after all this stuff was completely out in the open. It was probably the worst kept secret on the planet. And yet people just didn't really seem to bother them. There was even I don't know if they touch on this in the New York Post article, but some internet sleuths have kind of put two and two together, and Attia has some passage in his book where he says like his infant, like newborn child had went into cardiac arrest and was in intensive care for like an extended period of time. And apparently his wife was begging him like, hey, can you come back? Like your family needs you. And he was like, nope, I'm too busy working in New York. And people have put together the timeline and people have claimed, I haven't looked into the facts to verify, but a claim has been made that it's likely that he was working with Epstein instead of attending to his child in intensive care, which for
Well,
AIDS.
the thing that he chose to do was put in an exact date and time in which he got that phone call from his wife in his book. And so
Yeah.
then it's pretty easy to go in through all of those emails and look for the same date and times. And that's sort of how people were putting those two together.
Yeah. And, Lowell, to your point, there's kind of a question of, this that rarely comes up in evidence-based fitness, but this comes up a lot with entertainment where there may be an entertainer who has something on their record where you say, I don't feel comfortable with that. And the phrase that always comes up is, can you separate the art from the artist? So
Yeah.
there's a lot of
Like,
people
should I
who
still
say,
listen to his music? Even yeah.
how do I feel about Michael Jackson, R. Kelly, Woody Allen, on and on and on and on, right?
Diddy,
In this case, like you said, what's that?
P. Diddy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the newest instance. But in in some cases, I guess people will feel conflicted about that. Like you were saying, Warren, in this case, the association is egregious. The emails are gross. The story we just recounted with the book is really jarring. And to be completely honest, do you need him to tell you that doing cardio is good? Like, I'm not sure if he brings like enough unique to the table that one would even have to torture themselves with some kind of, is it work? Can I look past this to get that? My question is, what were you getting in the first place? It's just another person saying, hey, try not to, try to maintain a healthy BMI, sleep at night, do some cardio, eat well. Like, yeah, it doesn't really seem like quite the conflict that people describe in other scenarios like this.
Yeah, I think it's pretty different if something happens, somebody cheats on their spouse, or uh you find some questionable sponsorship deal or something that it's like it's grifty, it's shady, you don't like it, but maybe you're willing to say, well, I'm willing to give that person a pass for whatever reason. This situation is not that. Um, and even, the apology, quote unquote, that he came out with was, um, it wasn't good. I mean, it was like some attempt to take accountability, but not really. It was mostly just, I was naive back then, and I asked him about it and he told me that it was misconstrued. And so I took his word for it and I shouldn't have. And it's like, all right, you're the guy who supposedly is digging into the literature, all corners of it, right? And so we're coming to you for the comprehensive take on whatever grip strength and aging or metformin or fasting. And you didn't do like a cursory Google search?
Yeah, especially over a multi-year relationship with a level of closeness that is, yeah. And some of the messages back and forth were vulgar enough that if anyone emailed me anything of the sort, I'd be like, what is this person's deal? What is happening here?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm with you, Lauren. I mean, I think one of the reasons that the apology was so kind of wishy-washy and kind of fell short is there's no, I mean,
What
listen,
do
no
you
one's
say?
yeah, I mean, no one's accusing him of committing a crime, right?
Right?
He's there's no reason to believe like, he ever went to the island, although he did say, boy, I'd sure like to get out there sometime,
Yeah.
which is not ideal. But no, at the end of the day, like, yeah, it's there in black and white. I mean, I think his message that he kind of posted out, his statement, basically, it was kind of dripping with this sense of just, what do you want me to say? Like it's all there. It's not illegal, but it looks awful, and it just reflects really poor character.
I mean, the only honest statement would be I chose to overlook this for my own personal gain of getting in with this large network of wealthy people.
Right.
And that ain't a flattering take, but that's the only honest, like, truly I'm accountable statement that he could make. And he didn't make that statement, but that's it. Because you can't say you didn't know, and you can't say I didn't write them. So that's what we're
Yeah.
left with. Like, and if you want to follow that up with, I've grown a lot since then fine, but it doesn't hold a lot of water for me.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the end of the day, it's probably about as much as we can say about it because there's not much to say. It's pretty much, hey, if you're really interested in what the actual emails say, they are published. There's much commentary on them, and you can make of it what you wish. But at the end of the day, I forget if I got cut off talking about this leading into it, but there are kind of multiple fitness-related people who got essentially canceled within the last week or so. Some varying different magnitudes in terms of the profile and the reaction and kind of outrage in response. But I think a lot of folks in fitness, between these two large folks who got kind of exposed in the public eye, there's just a lot of people who are really disappointed. And the fitness industry and wellness is kind of associated with it. It's known for disappointment. But this week was, I think, especially disappointing for a lot of people, and I could kind of feel that in the vibe on the internet. Aside from the people who were, kind of really leaning into it and publicizing the stuff in outrage, I think there was a lot of people in the comments mostly who were just like, "Ugh, I feel gross. I feel lied to. I feel misled. I feel very disappointed." And I think that's a very understandable thing. Lauren, if I can make a meta commentary, I think when you get into the longevity space, I don't mean to paint with too broad a brush, but you do tend to get into the sphere of like megalomaniac ultra zillionaires who want to live forever no matter the cost. And that's a weird group of people to be with. And then when you get into the fitness influencer space, I feel like narcissism is not just the norm, but almost a necessary prerequisite. Like you find levels of narcissism and very two-faced behavior among fitness influencers that you, as bad as you think it is, it's so much worse, like in terms of how prevalent and how severe. So yeah, very disappointing week in the health and fitness influencer space. There will be more weeks like it, but I think this one was kind of a particularly jarring week for a lot of people who seem profoundly disappointed, and that disappointment is certainly very valid.
Yeah, I mean, you've been on record saying you feel like in the fitness industry, people aren't really cancelable. Do you think there's an exception here?
Well, I didn't know Epstein was going to come into the picture because that is the the kind of atomic weapon of canceling, as far as I know. So, um, time will tell. I mean, do you think he's down for the count?
I think he should be, but sadly, no. I think
I mean,
the world we live in, and I think his strategy in terms of not really addressing it and continuing to post as usual is sort of a strategy of, well, let's wait for like the next bomb to drop where someone else is in the spotlight, and then I can kind of keep on keeping on.
yeah, I mean, well, I tell you what, Lauren, as scientists, normally when we want to prove like proof of concept, you go for the most extreme case possible. So if we want to test my thesis that fitness influencers and adjacent fields are uncancelable, this will be, I think, in terms of the size of profile, the dude just got hired by CBS. And in terms of the magnitude of the cancellation event, I think this is the ultimate test of that thesis. So we will see if it proves to be true. It's hard to say, but I will tell you this. The person, the Scotty K Fitness, who got canceled a few days prior, all over my social media, it was just stuff about him for something that pales in comparison. To be clear, I don't want to create a false equivalency, but it was like all I saw on social media. Um, he is probably quite relieved that he is out of the spotlight. I feel like he, in terms of the timing, he was just like, could any bigger news please come along to get me out of this? And it sure did. That is for sure. So, Lauren, thank you for reminding me of that thesis. It will be tested, and we'll have to circle back and determine if it was legit or not. But should we move on to something that is far less gross and sad and disappointing?
Yeah, let's move into some frivolous headlines that don't.
Frivolous sounds so good right now. I've been dying for Frivolous all week. So, where are we going first with this?
Let's talk. Do you want to do some food news? We're known for our
Food
culinary
is great.
topics. Yeah.
I'm,
So
I'm looking at I'm looking at what seems to be a viral two ingredient Japanese cheesecake. Now, Lauren, I see this headline and I'm a little concerned because this could go one of two ways. It could be that someone has really cracked the code and this is somehow a decadent two ingredient cheesecake, or it could be an absolute catastrophe of someone who said, like, did you know if you put Greek yogurt on a graham cracker, that's technically a cheesecake? So, Lauren, which one is it?
it's definitely the latter. The this viral two ingredient recipe is Greek yogurt and cookies.
You're kidding me. I didn't even look. Oh my God. I swear I did not look at that.
Yeah. So there's a lot of folks on TikTok. Apparently, this is very viral. Um, and it's like, here's the Greek yogurt and coconut crackers. And other people have tried Oreos and Biscoff cookies, those ones they give you on the plane. Um, this is really disappointing. But my second question is, how is this Japanese?
That's a good question. Someone in the chat asked, is this the Japanese cheesecake that I've been hearing about?
They're calling
So,
it Japanese cheesecake.
oh my God. And Lauren, I'm just looking at it. This is today.com. It says fans of protein maxing have found this. It sounds like the person who made the video, their surname is Fukase. So maybe that is the connection, or I guess this was bought at an Asian grocery where Fukase made this video. I don't know. I think those are the strained connections to. I think that's what makes it officially Japanese cuisine.
No, because
But
there is like a legitimate there's a legitimate Japanese cheesecake that's actually cheesecake. So you have like your New York style cheesecake, which is really, really dense. I don't know all the nuances of this, but my understanding is that the Japanese cheesecake is like a lighter version of a cheesecake. So different ingredients than like your New York style cheesecake. Um, and maybe there's like a yogurt element to it, or like I don't know. But this is not cheesecake, you guys. Like, look at
I'm watching.
the recipes are Siggies with apple pie Oreos, Siggies with graham crackers, like uh and Biscoff and melon cream filled crackers. And this is
No, I mean this is
not
what
that there's
fitness
anything
people do.
wrong with this, but like, what are we doing? Why do we need to? You know what I said at the end of last year? I was like, can we stop naming things that don't need to be named? We're doing it again.
Yeah, this is like this is not too far away from if you were sitting down to some Greek yogurt and you're like, I'd love some flavor. I'm gonna put some semi-sweet chocolate chips in, and you're like, have you guys heard of fitness cookies? And it's like, well, no, that's Greek yogurt with stuff on it. So like, I'm literally watching a video from the link that you posted, and they start with literally a tub of Greek yogurt, and they're just putting in like chopped up fruit and Oreos, and then a little bit of graham cracker, and I guess that Now, okay, Lauren, to be fair, not that long ago, a few years ago, I took a lot of heat on the internet for my
Your
lasagna recipe.
I recall.
Yeah,
And that was not
which
lasagna.
I don't think I deserved the amount of heat that I took.
Definitely.
I've been told that I don't think I'm actually allowed to travel to Italy. I think there's been some passport issue. But in any case, I was joking when I was making my lasagna, which was basically, I believe it was shredded chicken with marinara sauce and cheese and some cottage cheese. I think that was it, if I'm not mistaken. Maybe a little bit of baby spinach in there. But in any case, it was not actually lasagna. But I went into that with self-awareness. This is a culinary disaster, I must say. And at the same time, what's strange about it is it's also a lovely meal that I would totally eat. Like, basically what they're doing is taking Greek yogurt, which I love, and just putting on some nice things to dress it up a little bit. It's just Greek yogurt with toppings, which is great.
Right, which is not new. So let's stop trying to reinvent things that people have been doing forever and then label it something that is just misappropriating Japanese cheesecake. The Japanese culture and the cheesecake community are pissed.
Yeah, I think what really jumped out to me, just to circle back, I didn't realize that protein maxing had so much cultural purchase that it would be mentioned on today.com. I thought that would be only within like the crevices of fitness TikTok, but it looks like it's out there.
It is out there.
Okay. Well, as long as everyone's being safe and no one's getting hurt, I guess that's fine. Lauren, we're officially at that age where we just have to let culture pass us by and let the young people do what they want to do.
Yeah, I'm just I'm not liking the continued trajectory of let's go outside and call it forest maxing. Like, we can just go outside and go for a walk. And same thing with Greek yogurt. We can just call it a nice protein snack or a protein dessert. It's been around for a very long time. Do you want to move on to the newest fashion trend?
It looks like, oh dear, we've got something about probiotics in clothing.
So this is brought to us by the glucose goddess, who is known for her own special flavor of misinformation and a ton of continuous glucose monitor promoting weird diets. But she is promoting the clothing from a new brand with probiotics embedded in the clothing, and basically saying that they've infused all this live bacteria into the fabric, and therefore it's going to positively affect the microbiome.
So the idea is that it's leaching through the skin, basically?
Correct.
Or just that it's going to put stuff on your skin, and because your skin has bacteria, we're calling that just part of your microbiome, like just on your skin rather than being like inside your gut.
So the idea is that it's going to infuse through the garment for like skincare benefits and radiance, and
Mm.
it may or may not, influence the gut microbiome in a measurable way, but it will um assist with your your skin's microbiome, and it
Yeah.
will restore and rejuvenate. And guess how much the shirt runs for?
If it's priced to my liking, $7.
That would be $270.
Oh my God. So let me get this straight, Lauren. They're telling you we're gonna make sure that your body has more germs on it than it currently does. That's what we're looking for, is to cover you with bacteria.
Yes.
And for the privilege of being covered with bacteria, you said it was $270?
Correct.
Yeah. I don't know about all that. I mean, if you really wanted to have a thriving dermal microbiome, I would say, Lauren, we were getting so concerned about body wash versus bar soap. I would say ditch them both. Stay away from the shower for several days, and you'll have more of a skin covering microbiome than you could ever hope for. I mean, you'll be radiating like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I have to say this innovation was not on my bingo card. This one definitely catches me off guard. I know that we're all into gut health and stuff, and prebiotics, postbiotics, probiotics have been around for a long time, and so there was a big kombucha craze, and people are all about the yogurt for those probiotics. Some people will take supplements, but clothing? Did you see this one coming?
No, absolutely not. I'm floored. I'm stunned. I'm upset. I'm struggling to open the actual Instagram post, so I feel bad about blindly criticizing it so harshly, but I
Well,
still feel
I'll
compelled to.
read. So this company is called Coperni, Coperni, and this is the description.
Is that a reference to Copernicus?
I do not know. Acting like wearable skincare, the C Plus Regenerating Top continually releases a unique blend of prebiotics and probiotics that restore the skin's microbiome and rejuvenates it. From daily life to sport, C Plus delivers active skincare benefits throughout the day. The patented skincare treatment infuses the fabric with a symbiotic blend of probiotics and prebiotics delivered gradually through a slow-release bio-based matrix. That's a lot of words to say a whole lot of nothing.
Yeah,
Bio-based matrix?
I'm going to make a competing brand, and my science page is just going to say, listen, I bought Costco shirts. I think they're about $15 for a 4-pack. And then I just rubbed a bunch of fermented foods and dairy products all over them. So I know that they have been in contact with myriad bacteria. And then I sold them to you. And so, instead of paying $270, I'm willing to send it, for basically $15 plus shipping. And I feel like I could undercut them in such a way that, we could really, instead of me relying on this terrible internet connection, we could actually build a studio, fly out every week.
So the funny part about this as well is the shirt is made of polyamide and elastane, and like the folks who fearmonger about materials would say that those materials are like toxic for the skin. So there's no evidence to support that that's the case, but it's interesting that these particular materials that often get a lot of hate from that community is also now using that blend to sell what is supposed to be this elite skin enhancing product.
Yeah. This is a tough spot for me, Lauren, because like I said, I can't see the page. I even if I could, I I'm very skeptical of people who just have an answer for everything. Like you couldn't possibly have enough time to look into all specialties and have a really nuanced, informed opinion on all things. And so I've made the dedicated decision as a person who's quite a generalist, I would say, in health and fitness. I'm out of the skin game. It's not my thing. Skin and clothing, like clothing materials. I know that some people get into the weeds on what your clothes should be made out of. I'm out. I'm not into it. So I have to sit this one out and just shoot straight from the hip, a gut reaction and say, probiotic clothing does not seem relevant to my interests. If an ad came up as I was scrolling through Instagram, I would say, no, thank you. This is not relevant to me. Please send different ads to me. And I'm a little bit, forgive me, I'm a little bit skeptical, Lauren.
Well, for those who are less skeptical, there is a regenerating legging, a regenerating bodysuit, in addition to the regenerating top. They all will run you between $240 and $270, and they're all currently in stock.
Well, if they're in stock, then by all means, folks, have at them and you let me know what I'm missing out on. I will be absolutely fuming when I hear about all the time I could spend being radiant when instead I'm being, what's the opposite of radiant? Dull.
Yeah, dull.
I consume light. I suck light out of a space. That's me.
And, Glucose Goddess is such a known expert and proponent of good information that, of course we got to take her word for it.
Absolutely. Just in case anyone's joining the live stream here, I know our internet's a little spotty today, and by ours, I mean mine. If you are absolutely at your wit's end and hating everything about watching a choppy stream, we will upload an edited version later. So trust me, we're not gonna bail on the audience in such a horrible way. But I do appreciate everyone who's in the live chat tonight. Someone mentioned, Lauren, that apparently, so the first time the stream cut was when I started talking about the Epstein stuff, and then it very ominously dropped out. The second time it cut, apparently, according to the audience, I was literally saying, it's time to let culture pass us by and let the young people do what they do. And exactly at that moment, the stream cut. So on one hand, it looked like very mysterious censorship. On the other hand, it looked like us just signing off forever, saying, that's it. We're too out of touch. It's time to wrap things up. So good time.
How about some questions from the FPF community?
Absolutely. Yeah. What do you got here? So
we got James, a longtime listener, first-time caller or emailer. And if you want to email us, it's frontpagefitnesspodcast@gmail.com. He said, I've never really bothered with creatine because of the gross texture in a shake. But now he has the Ninja Creamy with an I, and has found creatine in his protein ice cream to be very palatable. I know creatine in hot liquids tends to break down rapidly, but how about cold? Should I scoop the creatine on top before I blend, or am I all good to put it directly in the shake prior to freezing?
No, I think creatine's great with cold temperature. I'll look into it and see if I prove myself wrong, but I feel pretty confident going out on a limb and saying I wouldn't worry about cold at all. I think you're in good shape.
All right. Now we got Joe, who luckily gave us some information about himself, because I'm sure if James had given us these details, your answer may have differed. So Joe is 30, male, 82 kilos, brown hair, 5'8", and a wood pig in the Chinese zodiac. And he was seeing some of these videos that are like filming myself trying to do the splits every day until I manage it. But and then, they show over time until they accomplish the goal. But he was proposing an untrained person trying to do a 300 kilogram deadlift until they manage it. So he's thinking, given other ideal circumstances, such as good sleep, sufficient calories, good technique, as good as possible for someone who can't move the bar at all, is there any way someone could eventually achieve such a feat through simply attempting the same thing enough times with enough effort?
That's a really good question. I've just legitimately never thought about that. I struggle to imagine that you would be able to take that single isometric and progress it up to the point that it eventually overcomes the force of inertia to get that off the ground. Like it seems very difficult to kind of titrate that training dose in a way that would actually lead to an effective degree of progressive overload. I don't know, Lauren, do you feel any differently?
No, the thing about stretching or any kind of body weight exercise or like, trying to do a push up or even a pull up maybe over time. When you're trying to lift that much load and you can't do any sort of incremental versions of it to work up to that feat, I think it's highly unlikely.
Yeah, and there is like the specificity, easy for me to say. The specificity principle of training is such that if you're just doing an isometric in that singular joint angle and muscle length, it's like even that one day you do get it to budge off the ground, you're then going to move it an inch and get to that point of the range of motion where you're like, oh my God, I have no strength on the top end of this range of motion. And then you're going to have to go millimeter by millimeter and hope that, yeah, I just, it's difficult for me to imagine, like, I can't give you a sound rationale for saying why it cannot happen. And yet I find it so implausible to think that it would ever occur. And not everybody's really cut out to lift certain amounts of weight, right? We can't just assume everyone has the same ceiling, will make linear progress until they get there. And so for some people, the weight on the bar, if they say, I'm going to try to pull on this every day until I get it, they may just not really be capable of ever pulling that weight, even under normal training conditions,
Yeah.
in which case they're just going to be yanking on this thing forever. So my gut instinct is to say it's a really interesting question, and I've never thought of it this way at all. And I'm a little concerned about Joe and the way his mind works, but I think the success rate would be astonishingly low and perhaps even zero.
Yeah, I'm kind of there with you. We got one more training question from Punk Parody. Is there a serious risk of only posterior chain training but not anterior chain training? And he gave a couple examples, like, for certain athletes or just generally, so we can kind of speak about it in different circumstances.
I would say probably not. I mean, I think the idea that you have to carefully train your body in like perfect balance is really overblown as it pertains to like an injury reduction perspective. The only caveat I would say is my question would be, how weak is your anterior musculature? There is increased injury risk of doing athletic things if you have weak muscles. And that's very different from saying an imbalance in muscles between posterior and anterior. So if you have, for example, a completely normal level of anterior muscular strength relative to the activities you're doing and an exceptional level of posterior strength, I don't see that as a problem whatsoever. But if you are particularly weak and therefore have vulnerabilities kind of on the anterior side of your body with that musculature, then I'd say your concern is not that you're imbalanced, it's that you have weak musculature relative to the types of activities you're doing. That would be my answer.
Yeah, I would think broadly the opposite I'd be more concerned about if we're only doing anterior chain and no posterior chain. Of course, maybe there's more nuance there depending on the sport in question, but if you are only ever doing pushing movements and never training your back or your glutes or your hamstrings, you could run into some issues posturally.
Yeah, no, Lauren, I need to warn you, you're getting into a very dangerous area. There are some people who are really into the posture and pain and injury stuff who are going to come knocking. So
All right.
I caution you to tread lightly. These are the folks that have scared me for my life. I'm more afraid of them than whoever cut our feed when I started talking about the Epstein stuff. They get very particular about posture and pain and injury stuff. So I am warning you to tread lightly. I don't necessarily I've talked to many of people who, they do nothing but bench press, nothing but overhead press, and all of a sudden they have, various instances of shoulder pain and things like that. But I'm just warning you to tread very lightly in that area. But I will say this, Lauren, to your point on the idea of being more concerned about ignoring posterior training than anterior training. When we look at a lot of athletes who get injured, we're talking acute injuries, not just like your typical, cross country runner, chronically underfueled, underweight, stress fracture develops. But we talk about athletes who are out on practice and they hit the deck and something got acutely injured. It's usually a calf or Achilles strain. It's usually a hamstring thing. It's often a knee ligament. In many cases, it's rarely is it the case that it's just like, I just blew out a quad. It happens, but not often.
Yeah.
Tibialis anterior acute injuries. I don't think I'm not a sports medicine professional, but you don't hear about that too much. So I think that even just purely by looking at the probabilities, to me, the question then becomes not, are you imbalanced? But the question would be, what muscles seem to be particularly vulnerable in the instance, for example, or in the case of an athlete who's going out there running, cutting, jumping, etc. And it certainly seems that the posterior chain is more likely to be lagging behind than the anterior side,
or anyone who's throwing.
Yes, yeah, or anyone who's throwing for sure. Yeah, it's really fascinating too with baseball. Pitchers always have their rotator cuff issues, which is on the posterior side. And I was always confused by that until until it was taught to me. But basically the issue that baseball pitchers have is they're doing this overhand throwing motion, and the rotator cuff is responsible for actually slowing the arm down after the throw has occurred. Because I was always like, how is a throw, stressing those out? And so, yeah, it often tends to be that people are not doing adequate training for the posterior shoulder, or they're just totally botching their load management and just doing too much too soon. But in any case, yeah, it's usually the posterior shoulder or the medial side of the elbow for pitchers that'll get you with the old Tommy John surgery. And Lauren, did you know it was actually trendy back in the day? Kind of a toxic trend. Well, more than kind of, very toxic trend. But rumor had it, some parents were having their kids undergo elective dissection of their UCL, the ulnar collateral ligament of the elbow. So when you tear your UCL, that's when you need to get Tommy John surgery, which honestly, Lauren, I don't know if you know this, Tommy John surgery, very rudely, is named after the first guy to get it, not the guy who actually invented it, or the first high profile guy to get it. Who ended up actually having a more successful years of pitching after. But yeah, Tommy John is not the guy who made this surgery. Tommy John's the guy who laid down on a table and said, have at it. But anyway, Tommy John surgery became such a big thing with young pitchers that parents were almost like selling it to college and pro scouts, being like, my kid already got their UCL repaired. They've got like a bionic UCL because we went in and had the surgeon cut it and then repair it before it had the chance to actually tear naturally. So yeah, I don't know if people are still doing that, but that was definitely, I heard rumors of that back in the day, and I think people wrote articles about it, which is nasty, nasty business of elite sport.
Yeah, and I think what was going on there was people were saying, well, after this surgery, that athlete got so much better. But it wasn't, it was more about the, like, all of the rehab and post-op care that was appropriately training all the surrounding musculature. And so if you just did that and not like instead of the unnecessary surgery, then you'd probably be in a better spot.
Yeah, but no, I mean, they were really treating it kind of like, when you're going around shopping for a house and someone's like, listen, we put a new roof on last year. We totally redid the air conditioning system 2 years ago. You are not going to have to touch this thing for 15 years. That's basically the sales pitch they were making, which was that it's not necessarily, part of it was, yeah, he's coming back and he's throwing harder. But the other part was, this new thing isn't going to tear for at least another 10 years. So you can ride that arm until the wheels fall off, basically. So it's a nasty, nasty business, this pitching stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to the point, yeah, posterior chain. What's really nice about training your posterior chain, like I said, in the sporting context, that's where we see a lot of those injuries. And then, as someone mentioned in the live chat, just in the living life context, like rarely do you hear someone talking about, ooh, I tweaked my quad today, but you hear the hamstrings,
Low back.
lower back. I mean, you hear that all the time. And what is it? I think I've heard stats that like a third of adults beyond a certain age have lower back pain on a semi-regular basis. I mean, yeah, you can make the argument, Lauren, now that I'm an evolutionary anthropology scholar, we should have never stood up. We should have just stayed on all fours. The low back, it just can't take it.
Well, the other thing is that when you're kind of awkwardly picking up things or moving things just in life, then it's way easier to tweak your back. If you're twisting and moving something, that's when people throw their backs out all the time. It's very rare that you're like pushing to lifting something overhead to put it on a top shelf and you hurt your shoulder. I mean, yeah.
All right, Lauren, does that do it for tonight, or is there anything else you want to address with the good people?
Well, I think you owe the listeners a major apology, not only for your technology issues this evening, but also during our last episode when you just sort of left silently and then we were kind of communicating with hand motions. I didn't know if you were going to come back or not. And so I was just sort of talking, waiting for you to come back, which you didn't. And then I had to awkwardly wrap up the show solo. So it's been a rough couple episodes for us here.
I forgot about that. Yeah. So basically the way things have happened is the software we use crapped out at the end of the episode a few weeks ago. And then we had to miss an episode because your infrastructure was completely out.
Yes.
And then we did this one tonight. I couldn't get to my normal recording location because of snow and ice on the roads. And I said, we'll give it a shot. It was a huge mistake. Not good. And my internet continuously cut out. So all that is to say, I'm a perfect person. I just don't have the resources to thrive the way I want to thrive. And that is my apology. But here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to make sure that I do get to my normal recording location where things usually don't go poorly. I'm going to make a point of that, even if it means risking my life and my automobile to make it happen. In addition, someone in the live chat who unfortunately knows where I live, I've been doxxed because I work at a university, so the general area is known. But they said, hey, you should get Google Fiber because it exists out there. So I appreciate the tip, and I am legitimately going to look into it. So you see, Lauren, back to the concept of apologies. Of course, I could have done a better job taking responsibility. I'll acknowledge that. But what I like about apologies is the action items at the end, what I'm going to do to make it right. And those are the things that I commit to honor my relationship with the good viewers who are in the live chat, putting up with absolute nonsense over the last 3 weeks of episodes.
And let's just blame winter weather. Why don't we just move somewhere where we don't have to deal with this crap, and then we won't have any more issues?
Yes. We can. Do you still have a place in South Florida where your old stomping grounds?
I still have Florida license plates on my car.
Do you really? It's crazy. You haven't lived there in like 8 years.
Well, I probably shouldn't talk about that publicly.
What year did you finish?
When did I move here?
What year did you finish your master's degree?
Yeah, it was 9 years ago.
Oh my God. Are you allowed to drive?
Yes, I didn't have to import my car because I'm a visitor.
Is it there? Do you have it?
Yeah, I still drive it.
Okay. I don't understand how that works.
Well, now you're going to get me in trouble with the government.
No, yeah.
So thank you very much.
You have constitutional rights not to incriminate yourself even while you're in Canada. So I'll drop it there. I'm not going to ask you any more questions, and we can move on. Okay. Well,
it was an email, mortgagefitnesspodcast@gmail.com.
Yeah, and when Lauren goes to prison for not registering her car appropriately, then I'll make an alternate email that you can get to. But for now, can you say that again?
That's Front Page Fitness Podcast at gmail.com.
Beautiful. All right. And folks, I actually, I made an Instagram for the podcast. I have not yet posted, but if you go to Instagram, our handle is, I think I actually put it on the screen this time. It's at FPF Podcast. Lauren, you can't even tell, but I went to the trouble of making a new banner for our show around our floating heads. So at FPF Podcast on Instagram, this is a rare opportunity, folks, to follow an Instagram account before it has posted. It's not something you get to do every day. Normally when you do that, it's a bot. And I'm telling you, this page exists. I own it. And if you subscribe to that page, there will be at least one post coming in the future.
Wow. What a pitch.
Yeah. All right. Lauren, anything else for the good people?
Thank you for listening.
Yes. Thank you for listening. Appreciate you. We'll be uploading a more cohesive, less insane version of this episode shortly on YouTube after I have a chance to edit. Everyone, thank you so much for coming out in the live chat and spending some time with us. We appreciate you greatly and deeply. I was going to say both at the same time. But thanks so much for the support. We will be back in 7 days with yet another episode.